All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one will be doing another Game of Thrones video. It'll be a Q&A type of video, but we'll start things off giving our thoughts on the meaning, now that the series is over, the meaning, the story of Game of Thrones. Alright, and spoiler warning as per usual if you have not seen the finale yet for Game of Thrones. So another day, another Game of Thrones video, but in this one I'll try to keep it cool. We'll try to keep the the emotions, kind of relaxed here. I don't want to turn into another rant type of video. We've done those. We've done a reaction for the finale. We've done how we think it should have ended, a video on that. We've done, the petition video where we talked about over 1 million people signing a petition because they wanted Season 8 to be redone, which I think will be a lot higher by the time this is done. And HBO facing, I want to say, a lot of backlash for that finale and the way things ended up in the end. So in this one, we're going to talk about the meaning in the story now that it's over, because there's a lot of moments in Game of Thrones where things are going through, and there are some really tough times in Game of Thrones. Going back to the very first season, Eddard being killed off, Robb being killed off afterwards, a lot of times where there was some injustices done, and there were people that decided, I don't want to watch the show anymore. It's too dark, especially after, for example, the Red Wedding. You have babies getting stabbed, and some really dark stuff, throats being, just some nasty, nasty stuff, to the point where a lot of people decided, okay, that's it for me, I'm done, I don't want to see the show anymore, especially Kat and stuff like that when she gets it and that. There's some pretty brutal deaths in Game of Thrones and brutal moments, Robb being stabbed and a lot of the others. But a lot of it, eventually, if you hang in there, there's a payoff to it. After Robb is killed, and you see the whole thing, and eventually Walder Frey gets his because, Arya gets him later in a pretty brutal fashion, and it's a pretty nasty, nasty kill, but it's a nice revenge kill. Other times, for example, Cersei eventually gets hers for all the things that she's done over the years, even though it doesn't feel that good in the end. You have, for example, Tywin, who is killed at the hands of his own son. Of course, Tyrion, for some of the things that he did. So you get Joffrey as another example of one. So their comeuppance, they get their comeuppance eventually. The villainous characters of Game of Thrones, eventually they have to pay for the things that they've done as the series goes on through. And there was some times, here and there where I even myself thought, oh, this is so dark, this is so brutal. Do I still want to watch the series? Because some of the moments are so, they just feel bleak, and they feel like you just want to abandon it sometimes. But later on, in the later seasons, at least for me, we got to see some epic battles like Battle of the Bastards. We got to see some incredible stuff. The good guys didn't always win. Sometimes Cersei would beat, she'd blow up the church or whatever. She would do crazy things, Tommen to jump, and you'd have different things come through throughout the series. So all the twists and turns, everything going through, these surviving characters going right up until the end, the ones that we followed with more time than anyone else throughout the series, when it was all said and done in the end, we had a few standouts. We had Jon, we had Daenerys, we had Tyrion, we had Cersei, I guess, the White Walkers with Night King this season, and Arya, and everybody else that kind of survived up until the last minute. I want to say it would go down as your core characters, with actually the ones that are alive at the very end or are kind of in the power positions, aside from Tyrion, very background, like Bran. There's times where Bran feels like he's a forefront character, but a lot of the time he's in the background, and you're watching his scenes, but you're just kind of waiting to see what happens next with Jon or with somebody else out there. So, so in the end, when it all comes down to it, what is the meaning of the story, or what can we take from it now that it's over? And unfortunately for me, the ending of the series is such a letdown that it actually impacts the entire run, the entire thing. And that's the biggest shame here, is that the ending, with them deciding to go with a tragic shock drama type of ending, which is what they did, what it did is, with the chaoticness and how chaotic the last 2 episodes were in particular, with characters changing and characters killing innocent bystanders, killing civilians, and doing the things they did in the last couple of episodes, it really affects the series as a whole. And that's why the ending of the series, for me, why I've been so harsh on it. The reason why I've been so harsh on it, probably more harsh than ever before on any series I've ever reviewed or anything, is because the amount of time we invested in the show was many years, 9 years in total with a year off there, and a lot of episodes, a lot of time. It was a lot of fun throughout, and some things felt justified later on when certain people got theirs. But in the end, when it's all said and done, what they decided to go with in the very last episodes, the very finale, is they decided to keep it that shock-based type of series. So they decided to go with, instead of leaving us with kind of a more meaningful, full, nice story in the end, they decided to go with a more shock value type of approach. And I wouldn't say, because the argument used to be, well, it's more reality-based, or it's more like reality, right? Where people will stab each other in the back and they will do stuff like that. And at one point, I thought, okay, like with Robb, for example, if Robb just can't simply, he doesn't have the resources or the know-how to defeat Tywin, then he doesn't. And he gets, people flip on him, they lose confidence in him, and then he gets, because of what he did with Walder Frey, he gets stabbed in the back, Roose and everybody, they take him out. He loses, basically, and he dies. His whole faction is basically wiped out, right? The wolves and everybody. And so that used to be the argument, that it's more like reality, or it's more like how it would really play out, or how it would really go down. This season, to me, in the finale, it does not, and I'll keep it cool, it does not feel like reality. This, to me, feels like a more bleak, more dark ages type of reality. It doesn't feel like the reality that we inhabit, that we live in. It doesn't feel like the reality that, in the times of kings and queens would actually be that bad. It feels like it's a more extreme type of reality, where human beings are not the same way as they are in real life. And even though people can be power hungry and they can be greedy and they can go after things, they rarely will, if they can help it, except for some of the most evil people in history, people like Hitler and people, Stalin, and different people that were responsible for Mao, for, unbelievable atrocities. So, except for a few standouts, right, in history, mercy is something that most people do feel, and throughout history, it really doesn't feel that bad. You watch Game of Thrones through, and it makes you feel like people are just like, like awful, right? People are terrible, ready to stab each other in the back and do absolutely whatever it takes, and sacrifice and do all this stuff, really just for their own ego, for power, right? So it's very unfortunate that that it came down to that in the end. And I am very, very saddened that the decision that the creative team and the people at HBO, the showrunners and people involved with Game of Thrones, I am very deeply saddened that they decided to put the shock value of the twists and the turns as paramount or forefront for what Game of Thrones is. I really wanted to see, and it's not necessarily that I wanted to see that Rainbows and Gumdrops happy ending, but I basically wanted to see something that felt more satisfying as an ending. I mean, they have been talking about for a couple years, racing towards this ending, cutting the episode numbers down to 7 and 6 to get to a spot. The spot that we ended up at the end is a very weird spot. It makes me question, why did you want to get here? What is it about this spot right here that was so important that you just had to have the series go to that point, or you had to cross those lines at that point in the last 2 episodes and get to that spot? Why did you want to get there? Why was that the goal? Because all it does for the series, when you look back on the whole thing, it, in my opinion anyway, it hurts the entire thing. Because it takes the meaning out of everything you saw, their struggles and their everything they went through, everything, Jon and his love with Ygritte, for example, and the wildlings and everything he had to go through to kind of, Ramsay and all the battles and everything, and the Night King and them joining together to defeat the Night King and have this triumphant, to me, that should have been the type of end that you wanted to go, where you basically have them triumphant, them joined together in goodness, or to be able to have that kind of motivating type of ending where maybe the good guys win, or maybe they have to sacrifice a lot and they really gave it everything, and in the end, karma or reality allows them to have peace, right? They have earned peace, and they've all gotten together, and they've all, done what they had to do in order to obtain peace. Instead, they went opposite of that, where it was basically like everything they went through just turned them into psychos, or at least with Daenerys, crazy, to the point where she became so out of control for everything she went through that it took him to have to put her down in the end, and then even him to be looked at as this, garbage type of person for doing what he did, and just them kind of all coming together and deciding, oh, screw it, who gives a shit anymore? Just let Bran do it. We'll just have Bran do it, and no more fighting, and that's it, because we're all tired of the whole thing, and it's all chaos, and it's all craziness. And so in the end, we're just going to do this, and that's basically it. And that's my impression of how the series kind of wrapped up at the end, is that that's what they decided to do. Very saddened by that. Does it fit in with Game of Thrones and some of the things that were going on earlier? Well, sure, it does. You can say they foreshadowed it, that it wouldn't have a happy ending, it couldn't have a happy ending. But it's just unfortunate that we never get a payoff for all of the struggles that the characters have been through. They never really got a payoff. Daenerys got the throne to be able to touch it for a minute and then was killed by her lover. Jon had to kill his lover and then was cast out and basically gets to go with the wildlings, I guess, north of the wall and just whatever. And, it's just like, it's okay. That's the story. That's the reason why we followed these characters all these years, was to just see them all descend into chaos and descend into, madness, and then end up having to, and it's like, well, for the greater good, but who's even still alive? King's Landing is wiped out. 1 million people wiped out. The Night King wiped out the North, almost killed everybody, to the point where it felt like there was nobody left. And then after they kind of added in the Unsullied, and like in the recent episode, they made the Unsullied look strong and the Dothraki look strong. When, if you watch The Long Night, it looks like they were all dead right after that anyway. It's like, where did all these Unsullied come from? And where did all the Dothraki come from? Because it looked like they were all dead at the hands of the Night King. So it's unfortunate that they decided to go with kind of that Jerry Springer shock value. Watch this because you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the point, right? And in the end, that's what they did. In the end, unfortunately, they didn't have that payoff for the viewers or for the fans. They ended up letting me down personally, and a lot of you guys down too, because they went for that, shock and attention, and that's what they did, right? For the TV series, which, to me, I thought at times this could be a franchise. It could be bigger than just a TV series. It could be something really great. And, I'm sure HBO thought that same thing, but they allowed the showrunners to kind of go down. And George R. R. Martin, he must have approved this. I don't think they'd be able to do it if he was like, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to find some kind of meaningful end for everybody. Because, even in real life, when people get older and stuff, they're looking back on their life and they're looking for that nice story. They're looking for meaning. They're reflecting on what happened in order to feel some sense of meaning. And Game of Thrones, unfortunately, they went with shock value. They pandered for shock value, and they did that in order to, they changed the characters and to the extremes sometimes, where it did feel contrived for a lot of viewers. For some, maybe it didn't, but for some it did. And it just was like, wow. Even Tyrion, like, well, how long do you think she'll keep you around? Eventually she's going to kill you and stuff. And it's like, okay, so that's why he's going to do it now? That's why Jon's going to kill her, because he's selfish. He doesn't want her to kill him. And everyone's terrified of each other. And it's like, whoa, dude, is that human beings? I don't think so, man. That is some bleak, nasty stuff, man. And at that point, after the battles they had already fought, I just felt like this is so unnecessary. You would think everybody by now would be tired and would be tired of fighting and would have had enough and would decide, okay, let's all, relax, they surrender, whatever, let's get everybody going and let's figure this thing out. Let's relax. It's going to be peacetime now. And that's what they're going to do. But no, they went the 180-degree direction with that. So let me know, what meaning do you guys take from Game of Thrones? I mean, you could try to spin it in a positive way. If you're really a positive person, you've got a lot of serotonin going up here. That's good. I'm happy for you. But how do you reconcile it into a positive way and try to look at it in the end? It's like, well, their struggles and everything. It saved humanity from the Night King, and they took down Cersei, I guess. And in the end, they became corrupted through the process, and they had to cleanse themselves somehow. And the ones that were in the background took over. It's pretty hard to look at it. Maybe the best way to look at it is think of it up to like the last few episodes, and just say, well, up to here, it was good and it made sense and there was good meaning there. And then after that, it kind of fizzled out. Let me know what you guys think. What's the meaning you guys take from this series? I mean, all men must die eventually. It's true, right? So everybody in the end does eventually. But you would have liked to see some semblance of happiness for all of their struggles and for everything. And even for Jon, when he goes with Tormund and he sees Tormund, they don't look happy. They don't look like it's good. It's like, I almost wish they would have ended a couple episodes before, or just had Daenerys and the others just beat Cersei, everybody get together and celebrate, and have that be the end of the show. It's almost like they wanted to do it in such a way where you couldn't even do a spin-off, because like on purpose to just screw it over so that there's no way you could possibly do a spin-off or anything. Because that's what it feels like now. It's like, I don't know what you would even do with it. Arya or something, or Bran? Is he going to pull viewers? No way. Make Me A says, Trev, do you think Daenerys could have survived and use her if they ever made any more? Even that wouldn't redeem the finale, though. It's unfortunate, man. I mean, I think they're done with it for good. I think that really is. And I'm kind of saying this on purpose because it's like, we know it's the finale, but it's so lackluster, and it affects the story it affects the whole franchise so badly that you got to sit there and think to yourself, man, they got to do something to fix it. But it's like, it's too late. It's over. They can't fix it now. It's done. And, they really didn't stick that landing. It's like a gymnast that's doing like the quadruple, whatever, blah, 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 craziness, tries to do so much. And when it comes down to that end, to stick that ending, they fumble and they fall flat on their face. That's what Game of Thrones did. Game of Thrones did the best, most unbelievable. We couldn't wait to see it come down to end, and they landed in a heap right on their face. Can they be picked up now? No, because the competition's over. The judges have called it, and it's a 0, bro. clikzip says, the fact Jon killed her and none of the Unsullied or Dothraki immediately killed him is beyond unbelievable. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I can't sit here and think, well, Grey Worm would have been in shock and the Dothraki would have been in shock, so they didn't kill him. It's like, no. Okay. If he got Drogon didn't kill him. Okay. All right. We can kind of think that. But then the fact that Grey Worm didn't kill him and the other Unsullied and the Dothraki didn't kill him, they didn't even really know him that well, and he did what he did. They're killing Lannister men in the street like it's nothing, and they don't kill Jon. If you want to be totally realistic with it, Jon would have been dead that same day. He would not have survived 5 to 10 minutes after. If he told them and they found out that he killed Daenerys, they would cut his head off right away. MultiDalali says, gotta say, my favorite character of the show, purely based on his story, inner conflict, and redemption, is Theon. I'm so glad he wasn't part of this terrible ending. Yeah, man, see, Theon got the ending that you want, right? He went out a hero. He went out sacrificing himself for the others and for the greater good in that way. Man, he was corrupted earlier on, but he sure, kind of came into his own as the series went on through. He had been through a lot, but he sacrificed himself to protect Bran and to protect the others and the Night King. And wow, yeah, I agree with you 100%. His ending was better than almost anybody else, and he died early, right? CasinoWhale says, I would have preferred the Night King winning, and I feel that too, because at least then our heroes save face. It would still feel pointless in the end if the Night King wiped everybody out, and that this is the end and it's over, and they tried their best, but they couldn't beat him. So it was the end. Even that would have been better than the corruption that they did with the characters. They corrupted Daenerys. They corrupted the people that are the forefront characters and had them go against each other in the end. And it just left, I think, a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. JohnBillings says, now Disney has these showrunners doing Star Wars. So, spoiler warning for Star Wars. Let me save you 9 years, Star Wars fans. Don't bother watching, because in the end, everyone's going to kill each other and nothing will matter anyway. There you go. Spoiler warning 10 years ahead of time. Don't bother, because that's what's going to happen in the end. TaurenTLT says, Jorah had the most tragic story in Game of Thrones. And I think we'll end with this one, or maybe the next one for today. Dude sacrificed everything just for Daenerys to go mad and die. It's really sad, man. I mean, if you think of replay value for the series, that's what I've been saying this year and last year, is that Game of Thrones will go down as one of the best series ever, and it'll be one you can rewatch over again, and it'll have a lot of replay value. They just throttled the replay value. There is no point in going back and watching Jorah's scenes or Daenerys' scenes or Jon's or anybody. What they did is so devastating to this series, in my opinion. It feels like sabotage. Either that or they did not think this through at all. It feels like sabotage because, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, why would you watch season 3 or 4 or 5? You mean you can enjoy those seasons, but you know there's no payoff coming for their struggles. You know there's no great pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There's nothing there at the end, and they all sacrificed and fought against the Night King and did all of this, and nihilistically, it's a nihilistic ending for Game of Thrones. It didn't matter. That is really sad, man. That's really, really sad. And that's what we saw. And I apologize if anybody didn't kind of catch these things, or at least doesn't view it this way. If they view it a different way, that's fine, no problem. Again, I'm jealous of the amount of serotonin you have, because I would like to get some of that. Because I'm just looking at it saying like, whoa, how could you do this to the series, man? How could you do it? You could have just ended it at 2 episodes earlier and done 4 episodes this season, and I would have been way happier, because at least you wouldn't screw up all those prior seasons and all the struggle they went through. It's now for naught. It doesn't matter. Because they all just ended up becoming, terrible anyway. Even Jon is not as heroic or as great as he was before, after what he had to do. He's even questioning himself. He's like, was it right what I did? It's like, I don't even care to answer, Jon. You know what I mean? I don't even want to say, I just don't know. I have no opinion. I'm like him when he was talking to Tyrion earlier about what she did and him defending her. He's like, he's not going to try to defend what she did. I'm not going to try to defend what they did with this show. I'm not going to either. C. Newton says, I feel like I should offer Trev a hot beverage and a hug. So I'm good. I've had a chocolate milk. Jess gave me a nice big hug earlier, so I'm good. And it's cool. So I guess looking back on it, the way I'm going to think of Game of Thrones for my own sanity is to say it was a great series. They didn't stick the ending. The ending was a huge letdown, and it felt like they kind of trolled the audience, and it just is unfortunate. But it's still an enjoyable show. It still has some of the best battles ever. It still has some good character relationships at times. Again, I just really love when everyone got together against the Night King and just fought, alongside each other. Jon and Daenerys are fighting in the air and the dragons and everything, and everybody's doing what they can, and it seems like they can't do it. But then at the last minute, Arya pulls it out, and it's a heroic end, and the good guys win, and they don't become evil in 2 episodes and want to just all kill each other. Even to the point where if Jon didn't do something, she was going to kill Tyrion for sure. And, even the things he was saying felt selfish, because it's almost like Tyrion's trying to save his own skin in talking him into doing this. And that, for me, is like, wow. And good for the realm. It's like, there is no realm now. What realm? There's almost nobody still standing. The population is probably 5% or 3% of where it was 8 seasons ago. It didn't work out for anybody, really. Who cares who's in charge now? In charge of the ashes, really. It's like, wow. Anyway, if you guys like this video, give me your comments. Where are you at? What's the meaning in Game of Thrones now that it's over? I feel like they chose shock value and just drama over meaning, in my opinion. So let me know what you think. Leave your comments below, thumb it up, share, favorite, and subscribe at the bottom left if you're new. So for this one, see you guys again soon. Trev, same peace. Later, guys. See you soon.